With Johnny Mac, I'm Jody Mac. Appreciate you being here on Birds 365. And we've got our guy, Chris Franklin, joining us from the Screened In Backyard. Always fun to catch up with Chris. Now, we know you got birds because we've heard them in the background. You got a dog, too?
No dog. I mean, I may have the dog mentality that's talked about all the
mentality.
There you go.
He's post-game Chris, so he's got that dog mentality. So it's an overreaction Thursday, Chris, because it's day one of camp. It was interesting. I wish Nick Sirianni, I mentioned this earlier in the show, I wish he talked after practice, but, he's got it, Mr. Football, he's got to get in there and watch the film immediately. Because I thought, at the end when he had the bullhorn, he's screaming at everybody. I thought that was, maybe he was pissed about the pre-snap penalties. But I think part was, he made a calculated attempt to say, hey, we're not the NFC champions anymore. This is, you start doing this crap, we're going to lose to some bad teams. Did you take it like that, or you just think he was peeved in the minute?
I think he was a little upset with the after that whole thing, like 3 or 4 straight plays of everybody jumped for like either offsides or false start. Yeah, I definitely think that was part of it. And I also think he wanted to make them feel like you got to be prepared for anything else. Because remember that one time he kind of laid into the defense a little bit for not being ready. Like I think it's the second team defense, whatever, not being ready and being out on the field. He was in a mid season form on that one. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's trying to do that. You got everybody's projecting them to finish 1 or 2 in the conference, and you can't have that complacency going in there because guys start, especially the younger guys, veterans, not so much worried about, but the young guys here, we're going to be good at it. Nah, you got to shake it up and make sure they're on their toes. So I wouldn't be too shocked in there. I think he's just, as day wore on, it got hot. I think he started getting a little perturbed about those mental mistakes.
I don't think we've ever broached this with you, Chris. I'm interested to see your answer. John and I have certainly talked about it plenty. You two were there. I was not. I would speculate that Sirianni getting as perturbed on a bullhorn, screaming and yelling as much as he did was more about he really would rather practice more. He'd rather be old school. He knows that the CBA took his ability to run a decent practice away. And then the Eagles as an organization would more lean on the side of less is more. I think Sirianni would rather see these guys actually put more work in. And yeah, when it doesn't go well, he's like, if we had 20 more minutes, I could get this thing fixed. Let me scream at him. Maybe that's how we can get it fixed. That's just a guess on my part. Do you think Sirianni is just 100% in lockstep with everything the league is doing, the Eagles are doing, or do you think he'd actually rather see him doing more work?
I think he's in lockstep with what the signs. I mean, like you see when he and Howie Roseman seem to be like a 1 and 2, like buddy when it comes to a lot of stuff. Like when it comes to the outlook of how his team runs, what's the best thing to do, then talking to the medical. So I think it's more. He's in lock. He's okay with it. I thought it was interesting when they, the team releases that unscripted show that they did a lot. Yeah. And he was talking to Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter when they first got there. And he was saying, like, listen, we don't practice that. We don't practice. I'm paraphrasing here, but we don't practice that much. But we do it so that when we're in practice, you got to go full force. So that's why I think he's more upset if guys aren't going full force. But I think he realizes that he wants this team, especially after playing so many games in the for the regular season, the playoffs go as deep as they did, and then having to turn around and start training camp a lot and not have as much time to rest. So I think he's okay with it. He just wants the guys when they're on the field to basically exude everything they got in that moment and then come back.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing because all the Georgia guys, Chris, they're like, hey, man, we practice tougher at Georgia. Yet the Eagles seem to be better conditioned than Georgia. I don't know how they do it. I really don't. Maybe they do have some kind of secret sauce that we're not seeing because they were one of the best conditioned teams in the NFL last year. They ran all that tempo. They seem to always be better prepared for it than the opponents. They got something going on. Maybe they have figured something out.
Yeah, and then maybe something in those shakes they put in those post practice shakes that helps them out, whatever, what have you. But yeah, it's I think when you look, yeah, it's better if like, it's not as much wear and tear as the season progresses, and it's especially with Georgia too. Like a lot of these college teams, when you look at what they do in terms of you got to practice, you got limited things. You know, they basically at the facility all day with, and oh yeah, you got to study too, depending on the school. But yeah, you got to make it. You see a lot of that stuff in there. I don't know, maybe it's Georgia food, what have you, but they put a lot of money into the science and try to make sure they recover to be long lasting when it comes to that.
All right. Speaking of Georgia guys, although he's a couple of years removed, DeAndre Swift would be one as well. Philly guy, Georgia guy, he checks all the boxes. Yesterday, a lot of balls came his way, different looks out of the backfield, lined up wide, empty backfield looks. John and I have suggested all along during the offseason, don't think the Eagles, just because they got rid of Miles Sanders, are going to end up throwing the ball to the backs 150 times. They did it less than any team in the National Football League last year. But they've got a guy like Swift who's got a track record of being able to do it. How big an addition to the offense do you think it's going to be? At least the way they line up designs to get Swift in the passing game, or do you think it's just day one? Don't read too much into it, Joe.
No, I think they're going to use him. I think they're going to use him not a lot. Like he's not going to be like the third highest target guy, but I think he's going to have he's going to have his mark in the passing game, and also not just that, but when it comes to motion, because you see a guy who's actually a threat to catch the ball and do something with it afterwards. Not like with Miles, it looked like there was times when it wasn't the cleanest of catches when they did throw it that way. With Swift, you know, like hey, you know, he got a good receiver, so now if you're a linebacker or your safety, you see him actually moving toward the flat, you got to respect that. And when you respect that, you got so much spacing now for everybody else in the middle. So I think they're going to, and I wouldn't be surprised if like early on, they make a conscious effort to at least do like 2 or 3 passes to him early in the season. So teams they'd see that and like, oh no. And then when they start to over adjust, then that just frees up other stuff down the line.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to use them. It seems pretty, because going back to the OTAs, that's what I noticed first was, you know, they were putting him out wide, you know, maybe some of those bubble screens is DeAndre Swift instead of a receiver. But boy, I saw in the red zone, and it was the Tristan McCullum, I believe that was the interception where he got the he got the jump on Swift, and this is the third team defensive back. You know, they have AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. You know, nothing against DeAndre Swift. He's a very good receiver or a running back. I'm worried about getting those guys, feeding those guys. Those guys are dominant players. I think it's as simple as that for the Eagles. I don't think you have to muck it up. That's my thought process.
I don't think you do, but I think even more. I think, you know, it can be get even more production if you start to have him in there. You have to worry about it because if he frees up, if he does what he's supposed to do, and he does get those sweep passes, and even if it's like you throw it out there on bubble screens, you know, they for 4 or 5 yards, it's basically the same as a run without knowing behind this offensive line. So at least when you get those teams thinking that way, they can see more one-on-one stuff. When we see AJ Brown, we see Devonta Smith, see Dallas Goedert one-on-one in the red zone, it's a good situation that usually pops up after that too. So it could just be free it, go eat your vegetables early, and then after that, hey, you got dessert when it comes to the other 3 guys.
All right, want to jump over to the defense for a couple of minutes. I know you and John both noted it from the OTAs this season that Christian Ellis made some plays. He came up with some picks. He flashed a little bit. And sure enough, day one here in practice, he flashes with another interception. It's not like he's supplanting Seth Joyner. He could be beating out Mr. Morrow at the other linebacker position. How much is it going to take for him to be playing right aside Nakobe Dean as starting linebacker week 1?
I think I'm really curious to see when they actually put the pads on it. If they probably won't tackle the ground, but how he does in the run game. That's where I really think like his coverage skills. I like him a lot. But I think the one thing that we saw with Morrow with the Bears last year, looking at that stuff, were missed tackles, and he's a little lighter on the lighter side when it comes to two. It's just the frame she's a little bit lighter too. So I think Morrow's going to start the season as a starting linebacker next to Nakobe Dean. But I wouldn't be surprised if they put Ellis in more situational stuff, getting his feet wet. And if Ellis starts to really excel, say if we're looking at midway through the season, and Ellis still excelling and Morrow is struggling against the run game, then maybe they make the switch then. But I think Ellis is and this is why we were talking about overreaction Thursday. Like, all right, it was a good, in the OTAs, he did really well yesterday. But I'm like, yeah, I'm starting to see more and more. You see the traits that make him. You see starter traits when it comes to him.
Yeah, he because he had that one interception. That was a bad throw. Let's be honest. It was generated by the pass rush, but hey, he was there. He made the play. I don't see the other linebackers making plays. Why not just give him a chance and say, all right, I'm going to look at him in the first team because I know what Nick Morrow is. Nick Morrow can play. He's an NFL player. But I know what he is. You know his upside. He's been around long enough. Granted, it was in Chicago, but Sean Desai knows it better than most. You know what he is. Let's see. Let's throw him into the deep end of the pool. Give him the first team reps. If he can do it, great. Upgrade. If he can't do it, you go back tomorrow. Thoughts on that?
The things, especially when we hear so much about guys and their roles and everything else, I think they want to get their roles set in. Like, don't get me wrong, I would like to see him with the first team just to see like if he can do that. Like, I think if anything, maybe that joint practice against one of those joint practices against the Browns, maybe you do that just to see it when they go head to head and more stuff like that. But I think it's one of the things like, hey, get set for your like they're trying to get almost like a reliever, trying to get them ready for their roles and get them ready early on. So they expect like, hey, because Morrow's never played next to Dean for an extended period of time too. So you got to get those guys used to communicating, especially if they're going to be the starters too. So I think that's another key factor when you want that. So, but Ellis, I like him right now. I think Morrow's going to be the guy.
All right, our buddy Zach Mack. Sorry, we like guys named Mack on this show, in case you hadn't figured that out. Got the starting spot in the slot because although I was just glad to see that he wasn't part of the pup team, the guy who we expect to start when the season started was just limited in practice yesterday. Is that going to be Zach Mack's spot all year, the backup slot cornerback for the Eagles?
I think that's the best way he makes the team on that one too. I wouldn't. I think when looking at that one, I think he would beat out Josiah Scott personally. I think he's got more size when it comes to that. He's got the versatility in case there is something that goes wrong on the outside that you can just move him out there. Say if Bradbury or Slay gets hurt, you can move him back out there if need be. And then we know what he can do on special teams too. So I look at him. If we had to compare Josiah Scott and Zach McPherson, I think McPherson will win out in that instance. I mean, Scott has moments where you look like, okay, you see him and go, hey, you know what? This guy is because he can play the slot more efficiently. You feel okay, but then you see he gets beat on the inside, and then there's a big play on that one too. So I think overall, I wouldn't be surprised if McPherson winds up being the guy at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, Josiah's interesting because he had some really bad moments, and those kind of overshadowed. He was solid at other times as well. Yeah. My concern with Josiah is at the end of the season, though, they decided when Abante got hurt again, they decided to move CJ in the slot and rotate Reed Blankenship in. That was a bad sign for Josiah Scott. I do think that Zach McPherson is going to be the backup nickel corner. The question is the outside. They have so many bodies. And as far as Ringo, we know Ringo's going to make the team. But can they get him up to speed quickly enough that if something happens, and you hope it doesn't, to Slay or Bradbury, there's a lot of bodies, but none of them are proven. Are we kind of skipping steps there saying, oh, well, so-and-so can do it? Or is it going to be Zach's going to be the backup everywhere? Outside, inside? everywhere.
He's your Jack Driscoll of the cornerbacks. He's gonna be the ones that you move around and say, okay, is it something wrong? Okay, yeah, go in there. And we'll figure out all the other stuff on the back end. I mean, you look at I'm sitting there looking at like the guys shuffling in and out. Like even that third team, you're looking like there's some good names there, but it's just not proven. And
Eli Ricks did not look good when Boston Scott juked him out of his shorts.
I didn't know he had that juke in his repertoire. Scott did. I was like, okay, and you feel like it's like you're rookies. Your first day, you're 1-on-1. You want to make an impression, and the next thing you know, you're going one way, Scott's going another. It's not in a positive way. So it was rough. It was rough for him. But this team is deep is very athletic and deep at that position, and there's going to. It's rough to see who's going to be on that bottom tier, like who's going to get cut. There's going to be a name or two that's going to get cut. And you're like, ugh. I mean, anywhere from Greedy Williams all the way down to Ricks. It's so much.
By the way, I've been impressed with Mekhi Gardner more than Eli's got the bigger name, but I think Gardner's a better player. I think
he had a good pass breakup. Yeah, he had a good pass breakup yesterday too. And I thought you see that like positionally, he does, even though he may get beat or they may have a guy may have position on him, finds a way to get around him too. So I thought he did pretty well as well too. But Rick, I see some good things when it comes to Rick too. That practice squad's going to be deep or that late bottom part, but there's a lot. It's going to be rough.
All right, Chris Franklin, Tyree Tease Jackson. Are you in? Or are you out? You got to declare today. Now you can change your mind tomorrow, but I'm just asking you today. Tyree Tease Jackson, in or out?
Out.
Out. Damn.
I think he's out.
I like the kid. I so root for the kid, but every time you think he's got a chance to actually do something, he ends up getting hurt. He's probably going to happen again, but I'm sorry. I bought into the tease twice now. I'm buying into it again.
I think he'll be here. Why they'll just put him on the practice squad. I don't think anybody's picking him off waivers. So, but I thought, I don't know if you saw it, Chris, but when they were doing quarterbacks just throwing to receivers, Jason Michael was all over him because he didn't want a route that well. Was giving him the business.
He did.
And then like a few minutes later in team drills, he's making plays. I'm like, he's one of those guys. He's so gifted, but where's that balance? If you're not doing what you're supposed to, and he's just playing. Maybe he's a Sandlot guy. Just throw it up because he's so gifted.
First of all, that's still a good sign for him. If Michael's still yelling at him, that's a good sign that maybe there's something there.
That's a good point. Yeah,
that's right. I yell because I love. There's one of those types of deals when it comes there. But you look at him, you see the toe tapping thing. You think, I know he's got a couple seasons now, but having to worry about rehab more than having to worry about being on the field and catching thing, that plays up to him, and he still needs to round in the form. He's still a little raw in some of those aspects of playing the position. And every time you see him, like, okay, you could have made a juke here or shift here with the route. Then you see the toe taps in the back of the end zone. And you're like, all right, this guy could be a red zone threat again. It's consistency. It's the consistency with him of A, not only doing the same thing on the field, the right thing, but B, making sure you're healthy enough to be able to do those stuff on the field.
All right, Chris, we haven't had you on since the return of Dennis Kelly, the signing last week as a veteran backup free agent. How do you think he's going to be used? How do you think he's going to be deployed? Is it going to be swing left, right at tackle? Does that kick anyone else inside? How do you think his role on the Eagles will? And it has to do, it's tied to the decisions they make on other players. But what do you think by the time the season starts, at least conceptually, his role is going to be? Because his role is going to be stand on the sideline and cheer for the 5 starters. We talk about getting guys time. I'm still ticked off they didn't get Nakobe Dean in there. Oh, offensive linemen stay on the field. They do not come off the field. So you hope that his main role is his cheerleader. But if he actually has to play, how do you think they're going to use him on that O-line this year?
Come on, you're not excited for him being on a field goal team, trying to block me right now. But I think he's your first option. I will put on if something were to happen to Jordan Mailata, he's your first option on the left side because he played it 3 games last year. He's played it multiple, I think, 10 games over his career. He didn't allow a sack there last year. I think Jack Driscoll's a better right side guy. I feel more comfortable whether it be tackle or guard. But I think Kelly's the first guy that comes off on the left side. I think they go Driscoll on the right side. And then if there's and then the domino effect is we saw Brett Toth at center. I know Cam Jurgens, if something happened to Kelsey, Jurgens is the next guy in there. We saw Brett Toth at center again. I know he tried a little bit a couple of years, like the last couple of years. He's tried
to do ACL playing center. In that Week 18 game. Yeah, people forget he was the center. Yeah.
Yep. He's there, and then either Fred or Roderick Johnson. No, that's when they signed him. If that's the one that's like okay. And it still came to a point that when Jordan Mailata was talking to us during OTAs and he was asked who the backup left tackle was.
Yeah, that was funny.
And
I bring that up. I bring that up. I told you that, Chris, because I'm like, as you know, Jordan, he knows all our names, right? Like he makes it he's one of those guys. He makes it, his business to figure out the names of everybody who's down there all the time. He's just, he's that type of guy. Not everybody does that. That bothered me that he did not know their names because of how he is. I'm like, that can't be a good sign. If Jordan doesn't know your name, but that maybe I'm making too much out of it.
I think he did, but both guys were on the practice squad last year for the most part.
Yeah.
Fred's a big dude.
Fred, well, they're both really big dudes.
Yeah, both.
Fred is really big. Yeah.
I said, look like okay, what? Oh, hi. One of those things, but yeah, they were more practice squad. I think they wanted a proven veteran in that spot, and that's where I think Kelly fills that role.
Yeah. Well, they really liked having the luxury of Andre Dillard. I don't think people realize they really liked that luxury, but you can't have that. Obviously, they knew they weren't able to keep it going. It's interesting when I think about how much they care about depth on the offensive line versus the running back room or the linebacker room. It's striking. Like they're worried about guys who don't even play on the offensive line, and they're like, we'll figure it out at running back and linebacker.
Because when you run an average, if you're a running back, you can average probably about 3 or 4 yards no matter what behind that line. So it's like if instead of having to run around trying to juke and go east to west for like 60 yards running back 4 touchdowns, trying to get 2 or 3 behind that line, they just they'll find holes for you. So they're an important part. They're just one of the main reasons why they're able to have success with probably the main reason besides quarterback. They have successful offense.
Well, I was glad that Jason Kelsey yesterday, who likes to go to the car analogy, didn't go Etzel for Dennis Kelly.
He called him part of the core 5, Dennis Kelly.
When Tesla on Suopeta, who'll be fighting for his life to make this team. No car reference for Dennis Kelly other than, yes, he's one of the veteran guys. He's left outside of the core 4. He didn't go core 5. Didn't pull him in on that. But yeah, the Eagles always emphasize depth on the offensive line. All right, Franklin, need a prediction out of you.
Okay.
Friday's practice. You guys can kick back, relax, just write it, drop an article here or there. Don't have to make it over.
Relax.
Relax. You're right.
You'll be in air conditioning. You're not outside. That's relaxing. The question is on Friday, will you be in air conditioning? Will the Eagles go inside? Will they go early? I guarantee you they go short. John taught us earlier, if you're in the 50-minute range, close to an hour, it's a green practice. It'll be a different color on Friday when it's supposed to be well into the 90s by the time practice gets underway. What are you going to be doing Friday morning, Chris Franklin?
I think I'll be having to drive an hour earlier. I'm really thinking that's the case. So that way,
oh man, 42 is killing us, Chris.
Oh, it is. And I was coming from the South Lakes, and I'm sitting there like, what's going on that way? It was no matter what, 95, 76, it was all hell. But I think if anything, they started like they did last year. I think they started an hour earlier, and yeah, it's not going to be that long. It might be in shorts, might be sitting around like I might be doing a lot of stuff with that, but nah, it's going to be. If anything,
Might
I think
miss
hour
it
earlier.
on the wall. I got to take the Walt Whitman in. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. It's
You might have to go to Newark and fly into PHL and get a shuttle that way. It might be faster where that traffic was going. It was bad.
Yeah, you guys are gonna have to get out there early. I guarantee you, if they start by 9, it will be done before 10. There's no way they're going a full hour, even early before the temperature gets real high. It's not like it's going to be 68 at 9 o'clock in the morning. No, they will go quickly in practice. CF, always a pleasure. Thank you much for jumping in with us today. You know how much we're going to hit you up during the season.
Wait, I got to do it at C Franklin News on X. Follow Chris on X.
Dante Hall owns it now.
I've not seen the X sign. I like the X sign.
Yeah.
I don't want to get off on too much of a tangent, but did anything change other than their logo?
No. Probably the number of lawsuits coming in for them. That's about it.
That's
That's about
lawsuits.
it.
Rebrand. What are you going to rebrand yourself as, Chris? Since everybody in the world seems to need to rebrand, what are you going to rebrand yourself as, Chris Franklin?
There's so many options. I mean, Jordan Mailata had C Money for me. I mean, there's the writer formerly known as Chris Franklin. There's a certain.
You thought about this too much. I thought the Chris Franklin brand was too strong.
Yeah, right.
You don't want to mess with Coke, but I like C Money. I like C Money. I'm gonna go Jordan. Jordan, Jordan's a great guy, man.
Yeah,
he's coming up with branding for you.
I would actually believe that if you had a pair of those green overalls, that maybe he really was invested. But since you didn't get the green overalls, Franklin, be careful. Don't let my.
I'm saving everybody from seeing that. Nobody was. Ain't nobody got time for that. No.
By the way, they're selling those things. Did you get that email, Chris?
I knew that before they ever sent out an email because I was just looking for it. I saw one picture on X, I guess it was some social media platform, and I said, "Let me see if I can find another one." So I just Googled Eagles green coveralls. They're already in stores.
Oh, yeah.
Those guys that went out and bought them.
I got the press release.
Made. Yeah. They were already ready to be purchased by Eagle Nation.
Yeah.
Ladies, go to the club. You can see everybody in those green overalls from there.
But I will say the shame of them. They didn't have Kelly Green. As soon as that notification came down, Kelly was back. They should have had Kelly Green overalls ready for Eagle Nation too, and they didn't.
That's right.
Great control job with
that. That's how you can remake your brand.
And if you follow
Eagle Green coveralls, Chris Franklin, that's all you, bud. I can absolutely see that.
I'll cut you guys in on the deal on that one. Yeah. I'll cut you guys in on the royalties for that.
If you follow C Money on X, you'll be able to see the green overalls.
Sounds like I want a damn music label right now. Nobody want to hear it.
Chris, go catch a bird, all right? And get a real bird. That could be part of your new branding. The bird catcher, Chris Franklin. CF, thanks, brother.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one now.
Thanks, bud.
From NJ.com. Rebranding right here on Birds 365. We'll keep our branding as is. We'll come back. We'll put a bow on the show next. Stay right there.